This time we're focusing on topic unit 1.3 population structure, specifically the country of Italy, which is an example of a high dependency ratio here. So what is the learning aim today? Well, we're going to master this case study question that relates to this unit, 1.3 population structure. So you may be wondering, well, what are the questions for this unit? So, fortunately for you, there's only one question that needs to be learned. However, they sometimes do try to sneak you by phrasing these in different ways. So they may appear as, firstly, describe the problems caused by a large dependent population in a named country you have studied, or alternatively, for a named country you have studied, describe the difficulties which result from having a large dependent population. So just to reiterate the problems caused, we're not specifically talking about the causes. Okay, I have seen candidates write a very good answer, but for the causes of a large dependent population. So in this instance, you wouldn't get above a level 1. So just be careful. We're talking only about the problems or the difficulties of a large dependent population. So before we go into tackling the question itself, we just need to know or just review what is meant by the dependency ratio. So you should know what the dependency ratio is already, and this is kind of represented through this diagram. So there's three really key groups of people when we talk about the dependency ratio of a population. So we start with the young dependents, and we have the working class, or the working population, or the economically active, as well as the old dependents. So starting with the young dependents, these are children who are aged 0 to 14 who are still in school. And as you can see on the right of this seesaw or this scale, we have the working age people or the economically active people. So this is defined as people who are working, as well as obviously between the ages of 15 to 64. And then we come to the old dependents, and you can see again on the left-hand side of the seesaw the two elderly people here. So these are people aged over 64, okay, and of course are not working. So this can be calculated through a simple formula. So you can have total dependency ratio, okay, but I've broken this down into the two types, so young dependency ratio as well as old dependency ratio. And the second one we're going to focus on really, which is the aged or old dependency ratio. So this can be calculated, as mentioned, this group of people aged over 65 and are not economically active, and this is divided, of course, by the economically active and times by 100 to get a percentage here. So what is the question, or how are we going to tackle this question, should I say? So I've shown you the mark scheme from the previous past paper questions I've shown you earlier. Okay, and as you can see under the content guide, here's just some problems that have resulted from either an old or a young dependency ratio. And as always, to get level 3, 7 out of 7, we really want to be focusing on the use of place-specific references, as you can see here. So name parts of a country, and we're going to just briefly focus on now population data, okay, relating to Italy. Before I show you this data, I just want to kind of give you some context as to Italy's growing problem when it comes to its population kind of crisis at the moment in terms of its dependency ratio. So as you can see, this is taken from the World Health Organization. The diagram on the left, this line graph, really shows its population over the previous 20 years, from 2000 to 2020, it did increase. However, really since, I suppose, COVID era, it's projected to decrease very, very quickly, largely due to its low birth rates and its increasing life expectancy, which again is represented through a population pyramid. So I'm sure in your geography classes, you're able to work out or kind of infer the dependency ratio from population pyramids. And again, the two examples that I've shown, 2023, if we compare this to the projected one in 2050, well, you notice some distinguishing features about its dependency ratio. So obviously the amount of children, which can be represented by the birth rate, 0 to 4, well, this decreases. And as you can see, towards the apex or the top part of the population pyramid, certainly in the female category, you can see here, and both genders, to be honest, increases quite significantly. Of course, the economically active is also being reduced as well, so hence the dependency ratio is continuing to grow. Okay, so we're focusing on population data. Well, here's some data you should be using if you want to really get those level 3 answers. So of course, you need to know its general population. So its current population is around 59 million, so we can round this up to around 60 million. As shown in the graph, its population is starting to decrease now. Okay, and it's got an annual population current growth rate, and this will also, I think the figure will increase in the future. So I think it will be higher than this in terms of its decrease. But currently, its population is decreasing at a rate of 0.2%. And of course, it asks for place-specific references. We do need to name some places within Italy. So I've chosen Sardinia, the island of Sardinia, which has a dependency ratio of around 55%, which is very high. Okay, so this is taken from Statista. You can see the link I've provided. You can see Sardinia there at the bottom. Okay, well, why have I chosen Sardinia? If you have learnt settlement provision, Sardinia is one of the case studies there, which will be in a future video, and it's an easy location to remember because the highlighted island here, well, this is the island of Sardinia. Okay, so just in your answer, think about how can you describe Sardinia's location and how can you use its dependency ratio figure to really introduce this in your answer, introducing both of these facets. Okay, as always, we need 3 or more developed statements. So we've got the place-specific information. So we've got Sardinia, we've got its dependency ratio, we've got some general population data. However, that alone, as you know, in my previous videos, as I keep mentioning, is not enough to get level 3. We need the fundamentals or the foundation first. So that entails 3 or more developed statements. So if you're planning for this, just take any 3. I mean, you could, most of these on the content guide you could use. I think they're relevant to this case study in particular. So yeah, I mean, I've just chosen 3 random ones. Okay, and just think about when you're planning your answer, how can I develop these? Okay. So this is how it may look. As always, I've highlighted in green some of the data used. Okay, and in blue, it's place-specific references. So I'll read it for you together. So Italy has a large population of roughly 60 million residents with a similarly high population density of approximately 200 people per kilometre square. However, the main population issue facing Italy is that it has an extremely high old dependency ratio, as its life expectancy increases, and birth rate falls. For example, Sardinia, a large island to the west of mainland Italy, has a dependency ratio of roughly 55%. This created many issues for Italy. So again, now we're looking going into the 3 developed statements, which I've just divided into paragraphs to help you here. So firstly, economic issues. Because as the working population take care of the young and elderly, this results in a loss of productivity for the economy. Therefore, this slows down innovation and economic growth as the country tries to compete in a fast-paced global economic market. Moreover, there are cultural problems too. Italy's natural population growth rate is minus 0.2%, which means the population is shrinking. Therefore, Italy relies on immigration to replace the people retiring. This can result in culture clashes with the existing population and lead to potential discrimination. Furthermore, migrants often face social issues such as a lack of housing, as well as increased taxation. Additionally, as the life expectancy increases, this puts pressure on healthcare services and spending of this population. Equally, due to a low birth rate, the education services are strained, and this may result in schools being closed due to low numbers, and thus skilled workers, such as teachers, may choose to emigrate the country to find work. Okay, so as you can see, how I've structured it, developed statements 3, and I've included some data. This, all being well, should be 7 out of 7. I mean, you may want to touch on tax. I believe Italy's tax is high. I think it's around 30% the last time I checked. So that, again, that could be linked into one of your developed statements here. And it's, again, quite an easy one, really, to develop as well. So I hope you found it useful. And yeah, if you want to find out any more future case studies and previous ones as well I've already made, please do subscribe. Okay, well, thank you for listening. Goodbye.